Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I am Tanner Knight, and today we've got two boxes here. This is going to be kind of a twofer. It's more of a one-fer, and you'll see why here in a second. But we do have two boxes, so let's just go ahead and dig into this one here first. They are suspiciously guitar-sized. All right, box number one contains something that I can pick up with one hand and pull out of here so you can clearly see it's not a guitar. It is in fact a guitar case. So this is a Les Paul style guitar case, and I purchased this from Musician's Friend. It's their in-house brand, I believe, Musician's Friend branded case here, but it comes like this in a box with a little bag, a protective bag, and it has a tag that says Molded ABS case regular, and it's for Les Paul style guitars, which are the Les Paul, but more specifically the EC1000 that we talked about on the channel before. I traded away a guitar that had a case for one that didn't have a case, so this is that case that's going to take up the place of that missing case that didn't come with the EC1000. A little confusing there, but anyway, this is one of these cases. Let's take a closer look at the feel of it. It's pretty nice, actually. I would say that this is a high quality case for being an aftermarket, non-brand specific case. So it doesn't have any branding on here from what I can tell, and it's just a basic black plastic case. Let's go ahead and open it up. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 latches on this Les Paul style case. 6 latches on this Les Paul style case. But on the inside, we have a fuzzy black kind of interior that is nice-ish, I'd say. Nice. The foam is pretty hard, not very forgiving, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be a pillow. It just needs to mold the guitar and keep it from waggling around. We also have these silica packets, so I suggest removing those. Inside of the pocket, there is the keys for this case. So if you're concerned about locking your guitar, this is a locking case via key. It doesn't have a combo. It is just a key. So I believe this is the only latch here that locks. Looks to be the case. So there you go, box number one. This is just a fun little case that now goes with an EC1000 Koa top guitar. Now let's get into what we got here in box number two. Kind of a weird tape job there, but it looks like maybe they just stapled it and put that tape on top. So we got staples from here on out. All right, we've got some bubble wrap. Then inside the box, we have another case that is much heftier than the one I just pulled out of that box. This is a Gibson case. And of course it does contain an actual Gibson guitar, as you can see by how much I struggled getting it out of there. So let's open this case up and see what's inside. All right, let's do this reveal from behind the guitar. We also have a rear latch on the Gibson case, but we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 other latches on this era of Gibson case, which is 2000s, we'll say. So there you go. And inside, we've got a gorgeous white Les Paul Studio. This is still an era in which you'll find ebony on the fretboard. You will find, I don't know if you'll always find gold hardware on the white variation of the Studio. I think that sometimes you can find chrome, but most of the time you'll find gold hardware and just a black pick guard, trapezoid inlays, really, really beautiful looking classic guitar. And for whatever reason, maybe it's the Randy Rhoads effect. I believe he was known for playing a white Les Paul at some point. The white ones tend to have a higher value on the open market, and I've been looking for a white Les Paul Studio with an ebony fretboard for a while, and we finally got it. So let's get some close-ups of this beauty. I believe this is an Alpine white, is Gibson's actual color. The dual humbucker layout, I don't know exactly what we have in there. My guess is something like a 498R and T combo, maybe, I don't know, 57 Classics. I don't know if those were around in '08. But we have the standard Les Paul 2 humbucker layout with a Nashville bridge, stop bar tailpiece, 4 knobs, 2 volumes, 2 tones. No binding on the Studio. That is characteristic of this model. The standard will get binding, single layer binding that is, on the body and neck, I believe. And the custom gets multi-layered binding. But the Studio is not the bottom of the range as far as the Les Paul goes, but it's the stripped down version. It's the player's Les Paul, if you will. And it's every bit as good a guitar as the custom. It just doesn't have the fancy mother of pearl here. Well, I don't know, this looks awfully acrylic to me, these inlays. I'm not going to say those are mother of pearl, but you know, you may find some Studios with certain attributes like that, but most of the time, pretty standard like this. Between, I think it's 11 or 12 and up to 2019, you will find rich light on these fretboards. And rich light is a synthetic material that looks like ebony. So, I mean, what's the big deal? But a lot of people hate on it because it is not true ebony. But I think to each their own. And this is one of the ebony boards. So it is pre-rich light. And yeah, I'm really excited to play this thing. Let's go ahead and turn it over and see what the back looks like, and then we'll plug it in. All right, this thing is heavily yellowed over on the back, way more so than on the front. I think that's kind of cool because, number one, aging is, especially if it's honest, aging is cool. And there you go, that's honest to God aging right there on the back. Not as much on the front, which is also kind of nice because the front looks a little bit more uniform. So you take the good with the bad. I think that we've got all good here. The one kind of bad, I'll say, on this guitar is right here on the side of the neck. And this was disclosed to me after I purchased the guitar. And we worked out a deal to where it was satisfactory for both sides. But it looks like the paint has come right off of the side here. Not the end of the world. I don't know if it's noticeable while playing. It's a pretty significant chunk, but I still don't think it would be that noticeable during playing. We have our Gibson style Clouson tuners. I believe these are the deluxe style, and they look okay. They're gold. They have really weird colored tips. The tips, if the rest of the guitar looked like the tips of these tuners, I might have a second opinion, but luckily the rest of the guitar is nice and mildly yellowed, but these are slightly green, I would say, and weird looking, so I'm glad they're original. I don't know, they are always good tuners. Not the highest quality, but not certainly the lowest either. So otherwise, we've got a great looking guitar. Our neck pocket does not look mangled at all, and no significant checking of the nitrocellulose lacquer. So cool. Looks like it showed up without a headstock crack. There are no kind of spider webs over here that would indicate that it took a big crash or anything. It's always dicey shipping a guitar, but if it's done right, you can do it. And you know, I think that this guitar's testament to that. It made it here and it looks great. So let's go ahead and plug it in, see what kind of life these strings have, and see what she sounds like. So before plugging any new or new to you guitars, I kind of recommend doing a few things, and I don't think I do this on camera very often just because it's pretty tedious, but I like to take the truss rod cover off and make sure that there's nothing going on with the truss rod cover, and I also like to take a look behind these panels here and see what's hiding, just in case. You never know. It's a good idea to pull the pickups if you can, but I'm not going to change these strings just yet unless they prove to be really, really old, but they look okay. They look like they've actually been restrung recently, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that for the time being and see what kind of action we have. Off the bat, the bridge looks pretty high. It's wound you know, pretty high. So I'm not too sure that this action is going to be great out of the box, but that's not the end of the world. Before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look under door number 1. I took a look down the neck and it looked fine. The neck is nice and straight, and there are plenty of windings left in there. This thing has never been touched ever. I don't know if you can see that, but it is really, really unthreaded in there. You want to be concerned if you take a look in there and you see a ton of threads, because that means that the truss rod has been pulled probably from its affixed spot down here, and it's just pulled straight out and it's not doing anything anymore. So if that happens, it'll theoretically just wind all the way out. But this is a good looking truss rod and a good looking straight neck, so awesome to know that. Let's take a look at door number 2. So one thing I can notice right off the bat is there's a crack right here, and it doesn't line up with any screws, but it does line up with potentially the shelf. So I'm wondering if that's where one of the seams is. These are usually going to be 3-piece bodies if they're painted like this. They don't really have any reason to utilize really nice 1 or 2-piece wood. So they'll go ahead and slap together 3 pieces or more if they know that it's going to be a fully painted body. So I'm just going to unscrew all 4 of these screws here. They're gold, by the way, which is a nice touch. I think that the Gibson Customs are more known for the gold, but these white Les Pauls with the gold appointments, classy. All right, 1 more screw. Okay, we do have a PCB. As early as 2008, they were wiring these up with PCBs. So let's take a look at that. Yeah, right in there you got a PCB with 4 pots and all kinds of hot swappable pickups. You can pop any of these clipped pickups out very, very easily, which is kind of the benefit of them. With this PCB setup, you can unclip without soldering, as long as you have another set of pickups that interface with that clip perfectly, which I think most Gibson pickups are pretty standard with their clips and PCB setup. But they are Gibson branded pots. Don't seem to have any date codes on them. Kind of bizarre. But we have neck, bridge, ground, and some tiny little capacitors in there. So yeah. No surprises under door number 1. We also do not have any markings or any discernible cracks in here as well. Like I mentioned, that little crack right by the door. It does not extend beyond that. So I think if it is where the wood has a seam, and in fact, when I do get it in the light, I can tell exactly that that is a seam, and it's not separating by any means. I don't have anything to be worried about, but it's the kind of thing where if it does kind of creep up, then you should be worried about it. But right now there's just a tiny little separation at the seam. It looks like the paint just kind of sunk in there and cracked a little bit, but it's not saying the wood is cracked. It is just the paint, the finish on top. So no problems, good to know and good to disclose. This thing, pretty basic. It's not shielded or anything. I think that's mostly due to the fact that we have the PCB in there that's pretty shielded unto itself. But here we go. Let's go ahead and see what's behind door number 3. All right, there's not much to see under this one. If I can even get it out. There she goes. So we do have our 3-way toggle switch with nothing to report. Just nice routes. No stray markings. Doesn't look like that's ever been touched or replaced, so pretty standard. All right, she's all back together, and the other thing I noticed is that this neck pickup seems to be kind of recessed in there kind of low. It's really, really level with that pickup ring, whereas this one is much higher. I don't think that's always the case with Les Pauls, but again, I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, she's all back together. Our strap button here needs a little tightening. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. This one feels nice and tight. Okay, let's plug her in, tune her up, see how she sounds. So it's a miracle that this thing showed up without a broken switch tip, because usually these things will bounce around enough to where this tiny little plastic switch tip will kind of just disintegrate. So it did not happen on this one. It made the trip nice and sound, but I do recommend taking that off if you are going to ship a Les Paul or any kind of guitar with a switch tip that can be taken off. Just a small consideration, you'll save someone 15 bucks on the other end. So let's go ahead and tune this thing up and see what she sounds like. Okay, we're all tuned up and this thing sounds like it's got new strings on it. At least they feel new. These are really sweet sounding pickups, and I've just plugged into the orange clean channel. We're on the Rocker 30 here, and this is being plugged into the orange 2x12 PPC cabinet with two Celestion Creamback speakers. So a added little touch there, cream going into cream. So that's the signal chain with a bunch of pedals in between, but we're just going clean to clean right now, and we're being captured with one microphone, the Sennheiser E906, which is on the left speaker there. My microphone is going to be turned off for the playing portions. It's this Sennheiser AVX wireless microphone that is being sent directly to the camera. So let's go ahead and hear some cleans on this and evaluate how she plays. So it sounds really great. The tuning might be a little bit unstable, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep this here until we can settle these strings in. I'm not sure if they're brand new, but they feel like they're pretty new, and they might just have a little bit of wonkiness in them. It's also a Les Paul, which is notorious for having tuning instability, so there is that. But yeah, really nice sounding bridge pickup here. That was the bridge. Fully open, fully open. The tone affects the sound exactly as you would expect. Much mellower with that tone wound all the way out. Here's the neck pickup. All the way up is this pickup here. And like I said, this was a little lower in the pickup ring than I expected. Maybe it's okay. The action's actually much better than I expected after playing it. I guess they have to have that bridge as high as it goes for this action to work. And it works, so let's go ahead and play it. And just for kicks, here is the middle position. Nice, all usable positions all the way up with tone able to influence the sound as well. I typically like my tone knob all the way at 10, which is open, and let the volume do the work. But I also typically like a little bit of dirt in my sound. So let's go ahead and add the Ibanez Tube Screamer to this classic combination of Gibson Les Paul Studio into Orange Rocker 30. That's hard to get that thing to drive. Let me put it on the bridge and turn my volume all the way up. There we go. We were just kind of at 7 on the volume. Makes a huge difference. Alright, if you had to guess, what strings do you think were out of tune? I'll give you 1, 2, 3 seconds to consider it. It was all of them. So I think these are brand new strings. So we'll go ahead and use that excuse as much as we can and not claim Gibson's instability with the tuning. But I think we can just consider these new strings and tune them every now and again. Really nice. It mellows the sound without making it, I don't know, too aggressive. This is a very mellow pedal. I call it my rhythm crunch pedal. So the Ibanez Tube Screamer, really good combo. Let's go up to the Boss Turbo Distortion DS2. This is a pedal that it doesn't marry well with a lot of guitars and a lot of amplifiers, but when you do find one that works, it really works well. So that's kind of another excuse to say that it's not as versatile as the others. But I do find that there are some guitars that it just doesn't play nicely with. Let's see how this one does with the Boss Turbo Distortion DS2. Okay. I'm not crazy about that. Let's get a lot more lows in there. All right, see, we got a good pairing here. I don't know if it's the guitar or the amp or all of the above, but that's a really nice combo with the DS2 Turbo Distortion. Like I said, when you get one that works, makes you feel good. And that one is nice and aggressive, it's chunky. I had to really tweak the settings from a different guitar or a different guitar and different amp. You know, there's a lot of variables here. We're not playing with rocket science, but I really had to crank that low all the way down to really find the bottom end that I was looking for. And yeah, this sounds great. So that checks a lot of boxes for specific type of heavy music. That could work in a lot of metal contexts, a lot of hard rock context, probably more in the lead situation, but I think that you could get away with that type of aggression in a lot of different types of music. But speaking of aggression, let's go right to the Big Daddy. This is the Boss Metal Zone MT2, my favorite pedal, which I get a lot of flack for, but I don't care. I love the damn thing. And let's hear what this sounds like. This should be really classic, kind of, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s metal. Let's hear what we got. That's pretty freaking rowdy. That is about as aggressive as any music that I would consider playing for fun. It's probably the gainiest that I get at all, but this amp does have a lead channel and it gets pretty gainy unto itself. I don't think it's as gainy as the Metal Zone here, but let's go ahead and kick into the orange Rocker 30 lead channel and see how that stacks up against these pedals with this particular Les Paul Studio, which is what we're here to talk about. Damn, that is thick and chunky. That's pretty on par with the Metal Zone, which is not always the case. So this guitar friggin' rips. We've been in the bridge this whole time, mostly because when I use a pedal of any kind, I like to be in the bridge. It just has this crystalline situation that is a lot cleaner, I find. So let's go ahead and test it out with the neck pickup. This is that same Rocker 30 lead channel, now in the neck. Yeah, it's definitely got more growl in the bridge, which is something that I appreciate. The neck sounds good. It just is a little more together, I guess. I don't know. You call it. Tell me what you think the sound is more in the neck versus the bridge. This neck profile, speaking of neck, is very comfortable. Very comfortable. It's slim, and I'm guessing it's a I don't know, around a 0.9 inch type of thickness here at the nut and the 12th fret. It just feels the same all the way up. The neck does have this glossy finish, so you can hear it. That's why a lot of people prefer a satin finish, tend not to have that, but any satin finish will eventually gloss up into this anyway, so it's a moot point. But this thing just rips. It feels great. You know, we talked about this little chip of paint over here. It's not noticeable. I have not noticed it once. In fact, my hand, if it does touch it, it barely does. So certainly not a huge problem for me. The seller was kind enough to refund me a little bit of money based on that disclosure, so I thank the seller. It's a very good thing to do as a seller to recognize that and honor that. So I appreciate that and hope that it gets passed on. So karma, down the line. This guitar is just a keeper. That's one thing that, you know, you can play 1,000 guitars and you can always find a different one that you like and love. And I think that you can probably tell within the first 2 or 3 strums whether you bond with a guitar or not. And this one has a lot going for it, so it's pretty easy to bond with. It's stunning, number one, with this Olympic white finish, or Arctic white, whichever it is, and the ebony fretboard, black and white. It's like a tuxedo. And the gold to complement it. It's just a classy, classy player's guitar. And you know, I gotta say, this little ding over here, it does make me care less about future dings that I might get on this. I do understand that it's a guitar and it's meant to be played, and even more expensive guitars than this are guitars and they deserve to be played. So I say go ahead and play them. If they get dinged up, so what? It adds to the story of the thing. And if they don't get played, I think that's the sadder story. So let's go ahead and hear this thing in the context of a loop and yeah, wrap it up. right, so what are my final thoughts on this guitar? It's just an all-around rocker. These guitars were built from the early 80s is when you start finding the studios, is 83, maybe even 82, but 83 is kind of when they come out in earnest, and those really revolutionize the type of Les Paul that is accessible to a lot of people. And you know, if you're going to go in at a low price point, then this is the guitar for you, because still in today's market you can find this guitar for around $1,300 at the max, and you can negotiate from there. So I think that you should really look at this era of Gibson if you haven't ever. It's the late 2000s, 2008, and to verify that, our serial number is, wow, I can't see it very well, 023980366. So it's 0, the 289th day of the year in 2008. So it is the 239th day of the year in 2008 is when this guitar was made, and it's just a really awesome guitar. This is quickly becoming vintage. You know, in a few years it'll be a 20-year-old guitar. It has been played, but it hasn't been abused by any means. There's hardly any buckle rash or anything. The only thing that I can tell is maybe a strap or something marred up this area right here pretty good. The gloss is gone and it's pretty scratched up, but it hasn't gone through the paint at all to the wood or even that far into the paint. Maybe the finish is still there, it's just pretty scratched up. But other than that, we got a guitar in great shape with hardly any areas that say it's been abused or used too hard. This one little area outstanding. Otherwise, I suggest you take a look at the Gibson Studio line of guitars and take a play for yourself. Can't go wrong. You can also start with the Epiphone line of Gibson Les Pauls, and there you can pretty much find any model under that $600 price point if you look hard enough, and that'll give you a really good idea of what these guitars are all about. But there's really nothing like holding a USA made Gibson Les Paul, and the studio variant is just a really attractive guitar from a player's standpoint, and I really think that this is a nice addition to the collection. As a result, I'm probably selling one or two of my other guitars. I'm just not in the mood to expand too much, so I kind of have to swap in one for another, or just, you know, keep a rotating cast of characters. But this one's going to stick around for a while. I think this is a great investment and a great guitar, and hopefully you like this content. If you have any questions about this guitar, please leave them in the comments, or anything else you've seen here today. Always like and subscribe if you can. That helps out a ton. Otherwise, I hope to see you on the next one.